The heart monitor beeped in a steady rhythm. Inside the ICU of Santa Cecilia Hospital, the air was heavy. A reverent silence filled the room, broken only by the technical sounds of machines and the murmurs of the night staff. On the hospital bed lay Mauro Andrade, 49 years old, exactly where he'd been for the past 74 days, in a deep coma. Vitals stable, pressure normal, whispered Nurse Karina, gently adjusting his pillow. She did that every day, even knowing he couldn't feel it. Or at least, that's what everyone thought. At the ICU door, a little girl clung to her mother's waist. 10-year-old Isabella had wide brown eyes filled with innocent hope. She didn't see the tubes, the monitors, or her father's pale skin. Only the man who used to tell bedtime stories and sing off-key in the car. "Mom, can I talk to him today?" Amanda hesitated. The doctors had been clear. Mauro's coma was deep. He'd suffered a stroke during a work meeting and hadn't shown any sign of consciousness since. But Isabella never missed a visit. She always brought something, a drawing, a toy, or just a new sentence. "You can, sweetie. Just for a few minutes, okay?" The girl stepped up to the bed. She wore a borrowed lab coat that hung loosely on her small frame. A gift from Karina, who tried to make her smile every time. Isabella climbed onto a stool beside her dad, held his cold hand, and leaned in close. She took a deep breath, like she'd rehearsed her words for days. And then she whispered something no one else heard. The nurses continued with their routines, but Karina, who was nearby, noticed what seemed to be a slight twitch in Mauro's fingers. "Amanda, I think he—" Karina stepped closer. "Isabella, can you say that again, please?" Isabella looked shy. "It was just something I've always wanted to tell Daddy." "Can you repeat it?" She whispered again. "I still hear you when I close my eyes. And I love you to the moon. And all the way back." And then, it happened. A different beep echoed from the monitor. Mauro's hand twitched, then closed slightly. His eyelids fluttered. And to everyone's shock, he slowly began to open his eyes, as if returning from a distant world. Amanda gasped. Karina froze, then rushed to call the doctors. Nurses flooded into the room. But in that moment, everything else faded, except Mauro's gaze, locked on Isabella. Tears streamed down his face. He tried to speak, but the tracheostomy tube stopped him. Still, his lips moved clearly enough for Amanda and Karina to understand. "My little girl." The entire hospital was moved. Doctors, nurses, techs, even patients in nearby rooms heard what had happened. Some wept silently. Others prayed. But everyone felt something rare that night. Hope. If this story already touched you, make sure to subscribe. We share real stories that move hearts and deserve to be remembered. Tap the bell so you never miss one. Before the silence of the coma, Mauro was known for his voice. Not because he could sing, far from it, but because he spoke with a force that filled every room. A seasoned investigative journalist with over 20 years of experience, Mauro had collected awards and scars. But his greatest achievement never hung on a wall. She was 10 years old, wore big glasses, and loved dinosaurs. Isabella. Since her birth, something had changed in Mauro. He started turning down extra shifts, refused long trips, and became the dad who made heart-shaped pancakes every Sunday. Amanda, his wife, often watched him with a bittersweet smile. She knew Mauro was trying to make up for his own father, who had died when Mauro was just 12, never once saying, "I love you." So Mauro made sure to say it to Isabella every single day. Their routine was simple but sacred. Bedtime stories, car karaoke, off-key drawings with flying dinosaurs and floating pizzas. Isabella was his compass. But not everything was peaceful. In late 2023, Mauro started feeling strange. Intense headaches, forgetfulness, dizzy spells. But he brushed it off. "I'm fine, Amanda. Just stressed. A strong coffee and I'm good to go," he'd say, smiling, hiding the subtle tremors in his hands. What no one knew was that Mauro had a history of uncontrolled hypertension. He'd started treatment, but, like many parents who put others first, he neglected himself. The stroke hit during a newsroom meeting. He collapsed mid-sentence, pen still in hand, eyes wide but lifeless. Rushed into emergency surgery, he was diagnosed with a massive ischemic stroke affecting critical brain areas. The doctors did everything, but he never regained consciousness. Amanda, solid as a rock, balanced caring for Isabella with fighting for Mauro. Despite the pain, she chose to let Isabella visit, not to see an empty shell, but to feel her father's presence. Silent, but still there. Isabella suffered in her own way. At first, she asked daily if Daddy would wake up. Later, she stopped asking and started writing letters. Every week, a new note by his bedside. "Got a 9 on my science test. you'd give me a huge hug. I drew a dinosaur that flies and talks like you. I still hear you when I close my eyes. That last one she wrote for Father's Day. Placed it under his pillow. Her way of keeping his voice alive. 2 months later, she whispered it out loud. And something deep inside Mauro stirred. News spread fast. Man wakes from coma after daughter's whisper. Some called it a miracle. Others, emotional nonsense. But while the hospital buzzed with awe, not everyone was celebrating. Hospital director Dr. Eduardo Mireles was concerned. He feared the story, while heartwarming, could set dangerous precedents. We can't turn a medical case into an emotional circus, he warned. Things escalated when Karina, the nurse who'd witnessed it all, gave a heartfelt interview to a local journalist. She tearfully recalled the moment Mauro opened his eyes. The article went viral, and it triggered a backlash. The next day, Karina was summoned by the hospital's legal team. Accusation? Breach of patient confidentiality. I just told a love story, a miracle, she pleaded. And that could get us sued, Karina. The legal advisor replied coldly. Amanda, upon hearing this, was furious. Karina had been essential. She was the first to encourage Isabella's hope. Now they were silencing her? Mauro, still weak but lucid, wrote in a notebook. Karina can't be punished. She treated me like a person, even when I couldn't thank her. But then came a bombshell. Karina approached Amanda in private, eyes red with tears, but also anger. You need to know something. She revealed that 3 weeks before Mauro woke, 2 neurologists had discussed ending his intensive care. They said he was in a vegetative state, that he was just taking up an expensive bed. Amanda's heart dropped. I stopped them, Karina said. I told them he was still responding to touch. They said it was just reflexes. So, I lied in the reports. I bought him more time. Amanda was speechless. You risked your career? Karina nodded. Because I believed. Because he deserved it. Because Isabella deserved it. Amanda sprang into action. She contacted lawyers, journalists, medical boards. She wanted the truth exposed. But as this battle raged on, a more urgent crisis emerged. Mauro's neurological stability was wavering. His miraculous awakening was becoming unstable. And now, his heart began to fail. Doctors used this to double down. It was just a random response. We're giving false hope. Amanda said nothing, but made a promise that night holding his hand. They won't erase you. You came back for her, and now, we fight for you. Beside her, Isabella scribbled something on a piece of paper. A hospital bed, with light shining from the father's chest. The caption, he's still here, even when no one believes. Mauro's hospital room no longer looked like an ICU. It was filled with cards, drawings, and flowers. Visitors from other floors came just to see the man who came back to life through his daughter's love. The hospital tried to contain the commotion, but the story had become bigger than them. But in the middle of all that hope, Mauro was getting worse. Arrhythmias were more frequent. His mind drifted in and out. The medical team was divided. Amanda was in full battle mode. Karina, suspended from duty. Yet she secretly visited every night, just to check his vitals, like a silent guardian angel. One night, Amanda made an unusual request. I want Isabella to sleep here tonight. After long talks and convincing, they agreed. That night, the little girl curled up beside her father, her tiny body tucked into the space by his side. Holding his hand, she whispered, "It's okay if you're tired, Daddy. But if there's still even a little piece of you that wants to stay, we're right here. I'm right here." Then something happened. A faint sound came from Mauro's throat. Broken, raw, like a voice buried for years. Amanda froze. At first, she thought it was just a reflex. But no, it was a word. Bella. Isabella sat up, wide-eyed. You spoke, Daddy. Say it again. Mauro's lips moved, slow and labored, but with determination. Stay with me. Karina, watching through a crack in the door, dropped to her knees. Silent tears streamed down her face. This wasn't just a reflex. It was consciousness. It was connection. It was life. The next morning, Mauro and Amanda made a decision. Their story would not be silenced. They held a press conference. Amanda exposed everything. The attempt to remove Mauro from intensive care, the suspension of a nurse who had believed when no one else did. Live on TV, Amanda looked straight into the camera. They tried to give up on Mauro, but they forgot to listen to his heart. And they forgot that when you love someone, you never give up. The story exploded. Support poured in. Over 200,000 people signed a petition to reinstate Karina. Hospitals across the country debated their protocols. Mauro's case sparked a national conversation on empathy in medicine. Karina was reinstated, with a public apology from the hospital. And Mauro? Still recovering, he began physical therapy with one goal: to walk again, so he could walk his daughter to school, just like he'd promised her before the coma. On his first day of therapy, barely able to lift his arm, Isabella wrote something on the whiteboard. You woke up to a sentence. You'll win with every step. And you? Have you ever experienced something like this with someone you love? What would you do if you were the doctor, the nurse, or the daughter? Tell us in the comments. I want to hear your story. 6 months had passed since Mauro woke up. Recovery was slow, painful, and full of setbacks. But each tiny victory felt like a miracle. Every step down the hospital corridor brought tears. Every clearly spoken word made Isabella cheer. Every glance exchanged with Amanda rebuilt the love they thought might be lost. Mauro's first walk without support was straight to the hospital's children's rehab room, where Isabella was taking an art class. He walked in, slowly, leaning on crutches, focused. Isabella dropped her crayons and ran to him, shouting, "Daddy, you're walking!" He smiled, his voice still raspy. "I am for you." The therapists clapped. Some cried. Mauro began writing again. Not in newsrooms, but in notebooks, blogs, and letters to other patients fighting to return to life. He published a post called "The Voice That Woke Me Up." It went viral. Soon, Mauro was invited to speak at events about emotional health, family, and the importance of humanized care in hospitals. Amanda, once quiet, became a powerful advocate for transparency in the healthcare system. Karina, now promoted, led a new hospital unit focused on coma patients, one where affection, music, and family presence were mandatory parts of treatment. And Isabella? She became the symbol of it all. The little girl who didn't give up, who whispered into her father's ear, and woke the world with her love. At her school graduation, the teacher asked each student to bring someone who inspired them to receive their diploma. Isabella was last in line. She walked slowly to Mauro, who was already standing, waiting. "Can you do it, Daddy?" she whispered. He smiled. "If it's for you, I always can." They walked to the stage together. The entire audience rose and applauded. And in that moment, it was clear. It wasn't just Mauro who woke up that day. It was a hospital. It was a city. It was a country remembering that love is the most powerful healing of all. If this story touched your heart, you need to see the next one. It's even more powerful. Click on the video on your screen and come get inspired with us.